You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie and Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Relatable. I am your host, Stephanie Michele. And before you go and adjust your screens, yes, I am a little bit blonder. This is what happens when you watch back-to-back documentaries on Marilyn Monroe and get inspired. But I'm liking it. Something new, something different. So today, and if you're in Los Angeles, you know that we are experiencing record-breaking heat. By 1 o'clock today, it's going to be 100 degrees. So it may feel like that the holidays are further off because we're not feeling these like warm fall temperatures. And I think even other parts of the country are experiencing some of these weird heat waves as well. But I can assure you that the holidays are right around the corner. And if you don't believe me, just go to a grocery store or a convenience store, and right by the Halloween decorations will be Thanksgiving and Christmas already. It's here. It's happening. I have a zero tolerance allowance for drama, so every year I try to get ahead of the planning and the gifting and the travel to try to avoid as much last minute stress as possible. And when you think about it, why are holidays so stressful? Well, I think there's extra expectations during this time of year. Expectations are extremely high. We're hoping to have really awesome and memorable interactions with family and friends. We want to give and receive amazing gifts, and we want to look and feel good at holiday parties. And of course, we want to feel loved. So basically, it's the normal cycle of wants and needs with an extra emphasis squeezed into an impossible timeline. That's what the holidays are. So it's really no wonder that for many of us, the season brings depression and even some experiences of isolation because you don't really want to get yourself in the mix of things. But one of the best ways that I feel that we can do, or one of the best things I feel that we can do to keep calm during the holidays, is make sure we're well nourished. And since this is the season of sharing, why not share and exchange food and recipes that bring you joy and energy? And I suspect with a little planning, a holiday dinner with family that you're dreading could turn into a delightful sequence of dishes that are meant to get people talking about generational stories and how food raises us up and brings us together. Now, no, I am not suggesting that we start telling people how to eat over the holidays. That's not going to be a good idea. Or taking over all the meal planning or changing up beloved family traditions. All I'm saying is there's always an opportunity to make little changes that make things easier and more delightful for everybody. For example, I remember some of the dinners of my family, of my childhood holiday dinners, and I could always remember how we were supposed to be somewhere like 2 to 3 hours before the dinner, and we get there and all the meal's cooking and it smells so good and we're starving, just starving, because everything smells so enticing. And people are cranky, and I'm like, hey, an appetizer or two wouldn't hurt, it might make it better. So just a little change might take some of the crankiness that's in the gathering away. So we're going to talk about that today. My guest knows way better where there is opportunity to insert some mindfulness in cooking and meal planning for gatherings. So meet and welcome with me Meredith Klein. Hi. And let me tell you a bit about Meredith. Meredith is a Los Angeles-based private chef, mindfulness teacher who is passionate about helping individuals experience radical transformation through practices of meditation and healthy mindful eating. In addition to offering private chef services for individuals and families, Meredith regularly caters yoga retreats and events centered around mindfulness, conscious living, and she teaches mindfulness cooking classes, offers cooking demonstrations at festivals and large events, and consults on recipes for leaders in the food industry. She knows food. That's what I'm saying. Meredith is influenced in her cooking and teaching by her studies and practices of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. Meredith is the founder of Pranaful and author of the forthcoming book called Kitchen Ritual, Recipes to Inspire Art and Practice Mindful Cooking. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about food.
Yes, we are.
Yes. So I ask every guest, Meredith, that sits in the chair before we start and have a real focused conversation, is there anything that you just want to get off your chest, clear, get it out of the way because it's distracting you, or just want to share?
I'm feeling pretty clear.
You're feeling pretty good?
Arrived here early, sat in my car, did a little meditation, cleared everything.
Awesome. So you practice what you preach.
I try to.
All right. We're off to a good start then. Well, tell me, where did your love for food begin?
It definitely began in my mother's kitchen.
Okay.
From a very young age, I would be in the kitchen even before I could really get my hands in what was happening. I would take all the Tupperware out of the cabinet and stack it like blocks and put it away.
Yeah.
And day after day, my mom made dinner every night, so I was always in there. So it just felt like the kitchen was this place I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I started to do, cut out cookies and just little safe kid things, and she'd prop me up on a stool and I'd be her assistant, and it was fun. And so I just really always loved being in the kitchen with my mother. And then by age 6 or 7, I just wanted to be in there by myself.
Yeah.
So I would beg, please, can I make breakfast for the family, and you just leave me alone? And I would do that, and so it just became a really happy place.
At 6, you're cooking, so you passed the
things.
What was it, the easy bake oven stage, and just right to the kitchen.
I just went straight to the big oven.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So so already I'm hearing kind of that the food and kitchen and gathering the kitchen was a big part of your childhood, that played a pretty significant role in your memories and what felt good, maybe?
Definitely. I always just had very positive associations of food in the kitchen and wanting to be in there, helping and creating something for the family.
Did you experience other people gathering in the kitchen too while your mom was cooking, or was this kind of a thing between you and her?
I grew up in a pretty small family, and we didn't have extended family living where we were, so it was very much this intimate, me and mom and maybe my sister when she got older. But it was very much about me and my mom for a lot of that time.
Something that just came up. I'm curious. Do you, as we reflect on significant conversations, mom-daughter conversations, did those happen in the kitchen when you think about that?
I feel there was always a sense of purpose and focus, and it was we didn't bring those into the kitchen, which is something that's still it's I don't want to bring that energy into the kitchen. Let's save that for another time.
Kitchen is your church.
Basically,
the kitchen is really important to you. All right, so we keep it separate. Well, so what? So let's just go right there. Let's talk about the holidays. It's coming up. It's right around the corner. People are hosting or required to bring a dish somewhere. What are some kinds of dishes that you consider? What are some of the dishes that you would consider that would make would be important to bring to a gathering, or what should gatherings have?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing is to make something.
Yeah.
It's so easy just to go and pick something up, and there's any number of places to do that, but there's just such a difference in something that's prepared with love and intention, and you can taste that. We all have those experiences. Even if what you're eating isn't the most amazing thing ever, the fact that somebody took the time to make whatever it is really important. So I'm really a believer, if you're asked to bring something especially, take a little time, make a plan, make something, kind of from more of a health, well-being perspective. So through my study of Ayurveda, which there's probably people out there who are Ayurveda.
What is that?
Yeah. So Ayurveda is the ancient healing science from India. So to India, what Chinese medicine is to China, and has recommendations for how we can eat to stay balanced throughout the year. So at this time of year, the things we really want to focus on from the Ayurvedic perspective are foods that are warm and grounding. So things like soups and stews and things that just you think about it and it's oh, it feels like a warm hug. we naturally crave those things this time of year, and it's because they help us to find that place of balance.
Yeah.
So similarly, anything that grows in or near the ground, so all the root vegetables, the winter squashes, anything that has that heaviness to it.
And color,
really
right? We look for color. It's important to have. My acupuncturist just had this conversation with me. Isn't it amazing how nature supports and gives you exactly what you need at the right season? So everything that you just talked about, these are the types of things that are ripe and in season that we can get ready.
Yeah, it's not a mistake.
Yeah, it's not a mistake. We need it, and it's there. Yeah. Mother Nature provided. Well, back to, I love your recommendation for just, preparing something. Even if you're not a master cook, like mix up some Chex Mix or something, but just prepare something. Because what comes up for me in that is that is an immediate conversation now that you're walking into the gathering. Like you can tell your story about, I got all the ingredients together and I forgot one and I had to go to the store and then I met this person. Like it immediately creates something to talk about, which I believe, especially right now, we need. Like when we gather, we need some safe topics and we need some topics we can go to when things get a little heated because we have differences of opinions and, but coming in with the story, taking the time to like maybe seek out a family recipe and trying it and coming in with that story and letting other people tell their experience with the same recipe, right?
Totally, yeah. Or even I think a big thing right now is like taking our family recipes and making like healthier versions.
Yeah.
Like I do my grandmother's stuffing, but like in a healthier way without the sausage and stuff that she put into it. So yeah, that can be fun too, to kind of update and explain why like you did this.
Yeah.
Begin to bring that consciousness.
I love that, updating the recipes. So in my monologue at the beginning, I talked about sequence. Like I'm really focused on, is there a way to introduce food in a gathering that like creates a better sequence or just creates a better bonding experience or, maybe, what are your thoughts on that, first of all? Like having kind of planning out when certain meals or certain foods are shared during a gathering.
Well, I think definitely, like you mentioned, having appetizers is always a really good idea. There's nothing like people just, like drooling and like you just want to dig in and there's nothing there. And then people tend to overeat as well because you just have been like in this famished place. Yeah. So definitely, I think spreading things out, is always a good idea. So if you're hosting or even if you're just attending, offering to help the host by coming up with that sequence can be really nice. It also is an opportunity to kind of clean up as you go along and not just have this massive pile of dishes at the end. Yeah. So, or even just having a break between the main meal and dessert and, having maybe some kind of meaningful activity between then where people come together and digest a little before they stuff more food into their bodies.
Yeah, because it tends to be the season for overindulgence, right? So if we space it out a little bit, like I will never forget, I got to spend time with this lovely English family in Austin, and we basically drank tea all day. Like it's no joke, people in England like tea, but there was just a nice pace that like allowed that to happen where we changed into different conversations and then a new piece of a new dish would be put out in front of you and now it was another focus happened. It was so delightful. Like so the we're rushing around so much in our regular lives. Like if we can't slow down at the holidays, then when can we slow down?
Absolutely.
It's nice to do that, right?
Totally.
What are some of your favorite dishes or like what are you thinking about for the holidays that are like things that you want to put out there or take to the places that you're going to?
Definitely. Well, on the appetizer front, since we've already established these
That's
are
important.
very important.
Appetizers are important, people. Yes.
I always like to do things that kind of be prepped in advance because you don't want to have such elaborate appetizers that you just get taken away from everything else and then you eat 2 hours past the time established. That's like another thing, sequence-wise. Like try to stick to the timing you promise your guests.
That creates a lot of angriness too.
So I love things like little stuffed mushrooms or like there are these great little phyllo dough cups you can get. They're already shaped. You just put in any kind of sweet or savory filling. Those are like really easy. That's also something I'm really about getting kids involved in the kitchen early, obviously from my experience, but I think when I look at like the clients I work with, the people who had mothers that cooked have such a different relationship with food than people who saw their mothers or parents just slaving away or not enjoying. So to get kids in the kitchen having that relationship is important too. So with those little cups or with the mushrooms, you can get the kids in there stuffing them and getting their hands dirty. So that's fun.
I can see this. The visuals coming up of this little assembly line with these little hands, like putting mushrooms in and putting the top in. Like, that's awesome.
And it's amazing too, like for picky kids, they'll eat anything that they've put their hands on.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So
like, I did that.
Yeah.
Including Play-Doh, actually. Yeah, when I think about it. Yeah.
Totally.
That's a true statement. They'll eat anything that they put their hands on. Yeah.
So that's appetizers. For cocktails, I love doing anything with ginger. So ginger is a really great medicinal herb that also stokes our digestion. So when we're going to have this big, heavy meal, I love doing some kind of ginger-based cocktail, whether it's like a Moscow Mule or something, you know, more innovative using the seasonal fruits. Like we have persimmons right now. I've done some great persimmon cocktails. So I like having some kind of homemade cocktail too that feels a little more personal and also becomes something that
I love that.
relates.
If people are watching on Facebook, I'm interested in knowing how many families have a signature cocktail or have ever tried it. I'm kind of reliving my family dinners with a signature cocktail in mind. I'm like, ooh, that would make it a lot more interesting and fun. But yeah, I like that a lot.
And you don't have to play bartender. Like, we just like put the recipes and have all the shakers and shot glasses, and people can make their own. So you don't have to have a dedicated bartender. That also becomes an activity where people are gathering and making their drinks, and you know, the cocktail shaker might explode. That happened last year at ours. Like, we had cocktail everywhere, and that just becomes like another point of connection.
Well, and next your story. Like, remember when Uncle Bob shook his drink everywhere? Yeah, I like it. And for families that, you know, alcohol is not a thing at the holidays, like ginger is also really nice in water, like a little water. Making like a signature water for the meal, I think, is awesome too, and it really sets the tone. So like what, cucumber slices, ginger, lemon, mint.
I just saw a water with like muddled cranberries, very seasonal.
Yeah,
so.
Pomegranate.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see it.
There's lots of fun things. And then for the main meal, I don't do turkey, and I've just, even when most of my guests usually, if we host Thanksgiving, are turkey eaters, but they don't miss it. So I usually do some kind of mushroom-based main dish. But for me, Thanksgiving was always about the side dishes. Like, for me, that's where the fun is. So we always do a Brussels sprout dish with like maple syrup and balsamic vinegar, and that one is in my book. I will just say.
Just share that one.
Yeah, I love doing like a roasted squash, something that's just easy. You pop in there. Mashed potatoes, I love putting horseradish into my mashed potatoes. It adds some nutrition and also some flavor, and people don't expect it, and that becomes like a whoa moment. Something I've really gotten into the past couple years are roasted parsnips, like cutting them almost like little French fries into sticks, and some rosemary and maple syrup, mashed sweet potatoes, just ways that I would take the vegetables that might be traditional for Thanksgiving, but preparing them in ways that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
I think we get stuck in these ruts of like, well, my grandmother made the sweet potatoes with marshmallows, and even though I think marshmallows are disgusting now, I'm going to have to do that.
Or the green bean casserole with Campbell's mushroom soup.
Yeah, which is totally just like Campbell's and like the
those
French onion. People just said, I know, this is how we'll boost our sales for the end of the year.
I think so. I actually think that happened.
Yeah.
Well, two things came up for me when you were sharing all this. Like, well, three actually. One, I want to be invited to a dinner you host. Two, like, you know, the emphasis on color. Like, a lot of the dishes you're talking about, like, I can just see this like beautiful, colorful spread of food. And again, back to like what's seasonal, you know, and that's, you know, no wonder you have an emphasis on sides, because like it just creates a really beautiful, you know, rainbow and art, like you're saying, you know, like your book is about, just an artful dinner spread.
Absolutely.
And then I like the surprises. I like the radish and the potatoes, because, you know, again, with this concept of slowing down, and you guys have heard me say it so many times here, I'm a real advocate of just like unplugging and slowing down and meditating or whatever, but just really just being with yourself for a little bit to process things that are going on. Like we live in a time where breaking news is happening so fast that we don't even have time to respond to it, and our nervous system is not made for that. So this idea of slowing down, so you're forcing people to slow down when you put a little surprise in the food, because they think they just scooped up some mashed potatoes and like know what that tastes like, and just eat it really fast. And then it's like, wait a second.
Totally.
And then you have to kind of go, well, what is that special taste that I'm sensing in it? Yeah.
It becomes like a guessing game.
I love it.
Name the flavor, name the ingredient. With the color, one thing I love to do is just get a whole variety of root vegetables, and I'll get things like a watermelon radish that's pink, and different colors of beets and all these other earthy things, and just roast them, and like that color alone is amazing. And then people try to guess like with each bite. So if you need a really easy idea, just go get like one of every root vegetable you can find, and you'll have the colors down, you'll have flavors, and you'll have this like little treasure hunt game.
I love that. And I think what I'm hearing Meredith say too, like just there's probably always a way to not spice up necessarily, but just change up a dish that has become a tradition in your family. So like putting something in there that's maybe a little healthier version, or it's going to give it just a little extra flavor. It doesn't have to be, overpowering, and it shouldn't be. It's just something that's like, oh, well, this is special.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, I didn't talk about dessert yet.
Oh, yeah. Let's get there.
I'll share. So kind of on like how we update things and make things more meaningful to where our families are or our own experiences. For my family, if I go to Thanksgiving, it's usually at my dad's house in New Mexico, and he makes a green chili apple pie, which is incredible, with like toasted pinyon nuts, which are also very local to New Mexico, and that's just one of my favorite things. And now I make that when I host Thanksgiving, and it's again like that unexpected, like you think that the apple pie is just going to be sugary sweet, and then you get that little bit of chili. And then the chili too is like doing its medicinal work because it's warming you. And
that sounds amazing. I'm thinking I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Michigan, and rhubarb pie was like the thing. Like I don't think I've had rhubarb pie in like 20 years, but like it was a surprising. I remember it being really surprising to us as a kid. Like
that.
Like sour. What is this? Yeah, it's like I like it, but I don't know why I like it, but it's cool. All right, well, so let's talk about, can we use food to like soothe heated conversations? Like I have this image of when things get a little rough, and I know people are anticipating this right now. Like we're in a situation where our country's politically divided, and we have family members that we don't agree with, and I believe part of the problem, or the reason why we're so divided, is we tend to not talk about difficult stuff. Like we tend to avoid these things, and now it's this big pile up, and we're good at debating, but debating's not relating, and we need to get back to like, well, why do you feel that way? And just because you have that opinion doesn't mean I'm wrong. Like my opinion is valid too, and like we should be able to have these conversations, especially with family. Come on, like with family. So I have this vision when I was preparing for you to be on, of like thinking about people that are sweating, going home and dealing with this, and then just having this, like, when things get tough, just pop something in their mouth, and it just melts in their mouth, and they kind of, oh, okay, like I can now have this conversation. But what else can we do? I mean, I like the idea of the ginger and the signature drink. Is there any other kind of things that you can think of that might just help keep the surprises and keep the attention on the food and the gathering and the nourishment of body and soul?
Yeah, well, I think one thing is to kind of establish a ground rule that like the table is a sacred space. Like I was talking about in the kitchen, we didn't bring our drama into the kitchen when we cooked. And in the same way, if your family is open to it, or your guests, just having the table be like, this is where we eat. Like we leave all of that in the living room or wherever, and just have it be, we're here to eat and enjoy, and just even kind of making light of it. Like nobody ever changed their family's opinion on, politics over the Thanksgiving dinner table. No. Like it just hasn't happened in the history of the world, basically. Right. So if you kind of establish that, then it's, just you can enjoy that experience. Yeah. I think also one thing that I've done actually, I want to say, too, that even if your family is all of the same persuasion when it comes to politics, it can still be nice to just clear that space.
Yeah.
Like, my family is all very homogeneous in our views, but we can still get into the, like, complaining trap.
Yeah.
So I like just having a politics-free
I love it. So I'm two things came up for me on that. One, phones in a basket somewhere else. Like, phones at the dinner table, no. Phones at the holiday dinner table, no. Like, absolutely not. Just put them away. They can be in their own little, like, basket, phone orgy basket somewhere, and you guys can laugh about that. But they need to go away, and they need to be off. And if your family's not incredibly spiritual, that's fine. A lot of people start with a prayer, but just starting with what you're grateful for, like going around the room, to put that energy in there, I think is always amazing. I've been to dinners with friends and family, and just hearing what people are grateful for. First of all, it puts values in the room. You get really in touch with what people believe and value when they start to share what they're grateful for. So that immediately, warms it up, right? Now you're really prepped to, like, have this harvest of food that is also going to nourish you. But I think gratefulness is, like, a number one.
Yeah. And I think any activity where you can go around and everybody can share something, then everybody feels heard, and then you learn something about people. Yeah. So we've actually, when we've hosted friends, I usually have people go around and talk about food and, like, share, like, what was your favorite thing growing up. So if you're with your family, like, you might have the same meal every year, like, you kind of might know the food, but maybe each person shares, like, what they love or how they remember how grandma made it or whatever.
I love that. And back to what Meredith was saying earlier, if each person brought something to the table, then they can actually share what that dish meant to them, or why they chose that one. My favorite dinner party in recent times was one where we all my friends and my neighbors decided that we would do just like this all around the world potluck. And we didn't have to try because there were so many different people from, like, different places. We had Armenian food, we had Mexican food, we had Italian food. Like, it was just amazing. And we did this. Like, everybody brought a dish from their childhood. And before we ate, each person talked about the dish, what was meaningful about it, why they brought it. And it was so cool. Like, we learned different things about people in that time. And it was just, like, I can feel how I felt in that moment. It was so good. It was so contagious and so ripe with, like, nourishment just in the conversation of before we even ate.
Definitely. Yeah. And I've been thinking about a lot, like, there are so many refugee crises happening around the world right now, and in so many of these places they do have really strong food culture. So there's also, like, that opportunity to maybe make something from Syria or wherever and have that be a conversation topic. I
love that. So, like, now I'm so tongue-tied. This is amazing. Like, the idea of, okay, I want to share something that's really important to me. Like, I'm worried about this part of the country, so I'm going to research their food and bring that dish to a meal. That's amazing. What an opportunity to talk about it.
Totally.
Yeah. I love that. Well, let's see. What are so outside of holiday and it sounds like you entertain a lot and then help your clients do as well. Are there some go-to dishes that you always kind of like to have in the mix?
Yeah, I'm really partial to Indian food, just with my Ayurvedic background and traveling to India and just loving spices. So really any cuisine that's really rich in spices is, like, my go-to. So I love Indian, Moroccan. You can always whip up a Moroccan tagine with whatever vegetables are seasonal. Indian dals, like, there's 1,000 ways to make dal. You can always have just these simple things. Like, it doesn't take a lot of work.
And it's easy to eat, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So spice it up. Well, let's see. What else can we talk about? So, all right. Considering that, back to this whole idea of, like, the holidays might be stressful for some people, and maybe the plan is not to wait until just the meal, the Thanksgiving meal or the holiday meal, and put your emphasis on nutrition or the right dish at that time. But, like, what can we do now, knowing that we're going into a stressful time, to nourish ourselves and be prepared for maybe an increased amount of stress? Like what should that look like right now?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is just planning. Like we know we need to eat. Like that's not a surprise. So if you don't have food in your house, so I'm just really a believer in planning, and maybe you don't map out the entire week meals, but giving some thought, like blocking out the time if you're scheduling everything into your calendar, having some meal planning time, having time to shop, or now you can get things delivered. Like there's so many ways to get your food to you these days, and there's just not really a reason not to have good food in your house. But yeah, for me it's all about intention. Like you need to create that time, and then when we're on the go and we're like in like what feels like the whirlwind of the holidays, it's so easy just to pick stuff up on the go, and sometimes we need to do that, but when we do, the choices that we make can be really important. So what I see all the time with my clients is like their go-to is always like a salad or a sandwich, which from the Ayurvedic perspective like are not very balancing in what you need when you're stressed. Like these are very dry foods that kind of aggravate that stressful energy. And then also there's the consideration that when we are stressed, our digestion isn't functioning properly. Like our bodies are made to rest and digest. So if we're not getting a lot of rest, then our digestion isn't happening as optimally as it should. So it's really a good time of year as we get into those stressful periods to eat more of the warm, cooked, nourishing stuff. So soup is kind of always a good go-to. And if you don't have time to make dinner every day, make a big batch of soup on Sunday night and you just have that as like your go-to. So yeah, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but just having those things, or slow cookers are a big thing for a lot of people, where you can just leave in the morning, dinner's ready when you get home. Like but that takes planning. So it really is all about the planning and just making sure that there's something there that's going to leave you feeling good.
When you talked about when people reach for a quick snack or something and they're reaching for the salad or the sandwich, is there anything that you always recommend having on hand, like dry almonds, or like what's a better snack, like as you're running around, that you should maybe always have? Yeah,
well, for people who crave sweets, which tends to be a lot of people, my big thing are dates.
Okay, I like dates.
And just like one or two, because they are pretty sugary. But the nice thing about dates, as opposed to like something else sweet that you might pick up, is that they have a lot of fiber in them. And that fiber is helping to regulate the release of sugar into your bloodstream, so you don't get that spike and crash that you do if you have a candy bar. So I know for me, like I just get cranky if I need to eat, and if I eat a date, it kind of just smooths everything out. So
don't go on a date, eat a date. I like that. And you could carry those around. They're not temperature sensitive, right? So that's a great one.
Yeah, just keep them in your purse, or nuts too, little protein. It's just about the planning, but having the stuff on you so that when that moment strikes where it's like, I need something, you're not out searching, because then you're at the mercy of whatever's around.
Do you, in your thoughts about planning, do you believe breakfast is really important, that first meal? I think having consistent nourishment throughout the day is a good idea. And I think that, if you just go straight into the day without breakfast, then people either tend to overeat at lunch or just, get really irritable. The nice thing about breakfast is if you keep it on the lighter side, and again, like introduce some spices and things that kind of prime your body for the rest of the day, you're setting yourself up to really digest your lunch and your dinner well. So I've been doing overnight like oatmeal things that I can put a little like spices and things in them, and it's like, because if I don't eat breakfast, I find that I don't even eat lunch until like after 2. Like if I don't consciously, like you're saying, like plan for it, I don't eat until I'm absolutely starving, and it's like, and then it's just this whole thing.
Yeah,
I can't like get back into a cycle where I feel just normal and not stressed. I'm forcing myself to, like you're saying, like prepare a breakfast. So it's not like, what am I going to have for breakfast? Well, I already made like a little overnight oatmeal. It's there, and I can warm it up, or I can eat it cold. It's up to me. So I'm trying.
Yeah. And it's also, like, speaking of breakfast, like on the actual day of the holidays, like on Thanksgiving or on Christmas, more so with Thanksgiving, I find like people have given so much attention to the big Thanksgiving dinner, that it's like, oh, wait, and then we have all these people here staying with us and we don't have breakfast plans. So it's, always make sure you've got the breakfast covered.
Yes, because if you starve your guests, they're going to be cranky when dinner comes by, as we've learned. All right. Tell us about the book before we switch gears. Like, what was your intention, and what did you really want to make sure was in this cookbook?
My main intention with the book is just to get people in the kitchen cooking. Like, I'm just such a believer that we just all function better when we're nourishing ourselves, and nobody knows how to prepare food in exactly the way that we like better than ourselves. And I think it is just such a gift that we can give to both ourselves and people around us. So really the main intention is getting people into the kitchen, making their own food, making things that are healthy, exposing them to some new spices, different preparations, and then beyond that, it's really just a compilation of my favorite things, which was fun to put together.
Yeah, I like that. What I'm hearing, or what kind of came up for me, Meredith, when you shared that, is in our homes, the kitchen is the only place that we still have a tremendous amount of discovery to do. Like, so it's there is something about, like, when you go to friends' houses, like, we gather in the kitchen, like, there's so much in there, in terms of, like, what you can put together and stuff. And I really like your emphasis on bringing people into that space to create something and be curious about something and discover something, and then be able to share the results of it when they're done. So the idea of involving people in that process, I really, really like.
And that's what I want, is for people to enjoy the whole process, because we also, like, in our Instagram obsessed culture, it's like we want everything to look perfect and taste perfect. But sometimes it's just, like, I really enjoyed whipping those eggs. And, and then maybe my cake fell, but, like, it was just so meditative. Like, there's so many ways, and cooking really is, like, this big meditation. And I call the book Kitchen Ritual because it is, like, this very ritualistic. Like, no matter what you're doing, you have to shop and then prep and eventually clean up. And I think just in a time when so many people feel disconnected, like, we're not having religious affiliations as much, and all these other ways that we feel isolated, like, food can bring us back to each other, to ourselves, to just nature.
I agree. I love it. Where can people get the book?
They can get it right now. There's a link via my site. I'm doing the pre-order through Indiegogo, but if you just go to my site, pronaful.com, there's a little purple banner. It'll take you there.
And your web address is on the screen right now. And and when I share the archives, we'll put the links in there too.
Okay,
so
super.
Find the book. All right, so we're going to switch gears. Is there anything else that you want to share about food before we switch gears?
I mean, there's so much more I could share, but...
how much time do we have? All right, well, so... What I always like to illustrate on the show is at any given time, how we're relating can change, and there's always more information available. So we've just learned a lot about your passion for food and, what you believe and value, but we probably could learn a lot more. There's a lot more to you, right? So the way that I do this is I have this random, it's called Not Your Mama's Dinner Party table topic box, and then I have this book of questions. And they're kind of goofy. They're kind of silly. They can be fun. But you get to pick if you want the box or the book.
Let's do the box.
The box? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to pick one randomly. Sometimes it's kind of interesting, this little box, because sometimes they're right on topic. It's like, wait, we already know this. Oh, who do you dislike without good reason? That's a really tough.
Without good reason.
Yeah,
that's so subjective.
I know, right?
What's a good reason? Can I have another question?
Yeah, you can. I don't know if I would want to. I don't know if I'd really want to answer that one either. I mean, I would think pretty much. I don't dislike a lot of people, but I would think that there's reason behind it. Okay. Have you ever been escorted out by security?
I have not.
You're not.
I like to follow the rules.
You do? Yeah, you're a cook. You like follow the sequence and ingredients. Of course you do. I think we need to try the book. Those were kind of blank questions. All right, so tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, so what would your funeral be like if you died tomorrow? Who would you want to speak? And what would they say about you if they were being honest?
Wow. Going from
I know, right? Going from goofy
to very serious.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if my funeral was tomorrow, which hopefully it's not, I mean, I would want, all friends, family, people, hopefully, that I've touched through my work, clients to be there. Speaker, I mean, probably my husband. He's a pretty great speaker and knows me pretty well, so I think I'd give him that honor, although he would not want to do that tomorrow, of course.
Nobody would want to do
and
it.
Then there was a last part to that. What would...
who would you want to speak, and what would they say about you? So what would he say about you if he was being honest? Of course he's going to be honest.
I think he'd say, my food's really good.
I'm going to miss her food.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss her food.
Yeah, I don't think I'm hiding any, deep, dark secrets from the world.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think he would probably just share, all the ways that I've shared, what I do.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, since that event is not going to happen tomorrow, let's see if we can find another
happier question.
Yeah, these are this month tends to be a little bit more meaningful indeed.
Okay.
All right, tell me when to stop.
Stop. Is that the same?
All right, let's do this again. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. That's not going to be the same. Oh, this is a good one.
Okay.
Okay. Would you be willing to shorten your life by a decade to become extraordinary, attractive, famous, wealthy, bright, or gifted in some other way? So would you shorten your life by 10 years to become extraordinary in one of these categories?
None of those categories really appeal to me. Maybe if there was travel the world at no expense for 10 years, I would swap those 10 years.
Yeah.
But there's very few. Yeah,
I agree with you on that.
Doesn't feel incredibly meaningful.
I agree with you on that. All right, I'm going to let you do this to me. I don't
Okay.
always do this, but I have to tell you, and this is almost a heartfelt for Francis, her husband. You are my first guest that I've ever had on that I didn't talk to first, because I usually will let's just see if we have chemistry. But he's such a great person that I'm I'm going to love her.
I'm glad that he vetted, or that was vetting.
Yeah. It's I don't need to talk to her. It's going to be fine. So we're just meeting each other for the first time and actually learning about each other. So.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Stop.
Do you ever spit, clean your teeth, or pick your nose in public?
Oh my God. For sure the teeth thing. Yeah, because I live in California and I eat a lot of kale. Big surprise. And I seem to always feel like there's something on my teeth. And then I also get if I eat a sandwich or something, I'll get lipstick down here. So I constantly feel I would never touch my nose. I've watched people driving. I can't.
Yeah, what is it with driving? You get some people and I notice at stop signs, people.
I'm do you not know I'm right next to you and I just saw you pick your nose? That is really gross. But yeah. But for sure, teeth always. I should just have something because
California problem.
Yeah, it's a California problem. Kale and California problems seem to be the same thing. Yeah, that was a fun one. All right, do one more.
Okay.
This is stop.
If you could take a 1-month trip anywhere in the world and money were not a consideration, where would you go and what would you do?
Oh, wow. 1 month anywhere in the world, money is not an option. Or money, there's no issues. There's so many places I haven't been. So travel, I really believe in travel as a way to grow and to experience other cultures and to understand things better. So I think it's really important. Then there's so much on this list. What's coming up visually in my mind is green. I want to go to Scotland or Ireland, somewhere where it's at night there's no noise pollution and it's just the stars and the skies, and in the daytime it's just nature for miles and no, no, which is funny coming from someone that lives in downtown Los Angeles. But I do appreciate zoning out in nature and the idea of high grasses. I wouldn't even need to do a lot. I would just want to be in nature, some animals, maybe some horses and things around, and that would be enough. Maybe learn how to churn my own butter or something. I would dig that. A complete slowdown. And probably like a cold place. I love islands and stuff too, but like cold place with big sweaters and stuff. Maybe that's just what I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah.
Because it's 100 degrees out.
Totally. Understandable.
100 degrees. All right. Well, that was fun.
It was.
So we're going to switch gears one more time before we end the show today. So on every show, I'd like to do what's called a heart swell. And what it is, I just ask the guests to like think of somebody that is, made a difference in your life, that you just really want to give a shout out. You want to like say, hey, like you're really important to me, and you're important to me because this, and you deserve to hear this. The reason that I ask people to do this is I feel like we don't do it enough. We don't, we tend to feel like, expressing deep emotions is scary, and it shouldn't be, and it's not. And I just want to encourage everybody to do it. So. Are you okay with doing that?
Absolutely.
Do you have someone in mind?
I do.
Okay, yeah. So then just share to that person.
Okay. Well, I just spent last week in Seattle with my baby sister, Elaine, who's not really a baby any longer, but younger sister. And she's a mother now, and it was just so joyful being able to see like this new chapter that she's created and this beautiful daughter that she has. So I just want to say, Elaine, I'm very proud of you and love you so much, and just love seeing you be a mother and pass on like such great values to Eliora.
And she's probably looking forward to getting her niece in the kitchen.
Actually, we had a little kind of parallel play. She had like a little frying pan, and I was making breakfast, and she stood there, and I was like, I can't wait till you can really be my sous chef.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. That was awesome heart swell. I love it when people shout out to their siblings, because we forget about our siblings sometimes. So that was awesome. Really, really enjoyed having you here. Learned a lot.
Me too.
And when the archives of the show, like I said, we'll share where you can get Meredith's book, and we'll share some social media profiles and her website, so you can learn more about that. Is there any recipe that you want to share? Should we put out there? Like, you just say, no, get the book.
There are a lot of great recipes in the book. One that just came to mind, also just kind of thinking about family traditions and having these connections to New Mexico, we always have a red chili sauce in addition to or in place of gravy. It goes really well on like mashed potatoes or mashed cauliflower, whatever you're doing. Yeah. So I think that one's on my website. I tend to like always just like gravitate towards the fall foods. There's a lot. There's also like a really great pumpkin brownie recipe on my website that I love this time of year.
Forget the pumpkin spice latte. Yeah. Go for the pumpkin brownie.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Awesome. Well, we'll share all that. Thank you so much for being here. Just a couple things. So usually I issue a social challenge for the week. So I'm really feeling like having a conversation, like starting a conversation with somebody about, what was your favorite dish from childhood? Like just having a food conversation, more not what do you like, what kind of foods do you like, but like what has been the most meaningful dish that you've ever experienced and why. So find ways to maybe ask a coworker that, or a friend, or as you're starting to plan your holiday gatherings, maybe it's just with friends, like maybe start the conversation for how you're going to meal plan with that exploration. So that's going to be the social challenge of the week. Next week is the Halloween episode, and I am dressing up, and there will be surprises, and that's all I'm going to say, and I'm really looking forward to it. My guest is a friend of mine that I've been wanting to have on for a while, and we're just going to have fun. It's just going to be silly and fun. And tomorrow is a public shared experience at the Relational Center. You've heard me talk about this. I would love to see everybody there. It starts at 7 o'clock. It's really just like a vitamin B shot for relating. It's really what happens is we just kind of connect, and you feel what it feels like to be seen and heard. It's always a good time. I watch people leave, come in if they're new and go, I'm not so sure what's going to happen, and leave very lifted. So I'm really happy to be now facilitating these for a year. We started this in November of last year, and everybody's welcome. It's always a good time, and I'd love to see people there. So that's tomorrow. As always, I'm just going to sign off. Now more than ever, it's just important to relate, not debate. Go into your meals and your holidays with the intention of relating. And the best way to get into that intention is just to be curious. So relate with more curiosity is always going to be my sign off on this show. I wish you the best, and we'll see you next week.
You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.